Kitty Hawk Town Council to order Tuesday, April the 2nd, 2013, Kitty Hawk Town Hall, 6 p.m. We welcome everybody out tonight, and thank you for coming. And I ask you to join in a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve? Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is presentations. Mr. Jim Snyder.
Good evening. With me is Linda Wood and Beth Roach over here. Linda's going to start out our presentation for us.
Mayor Perry and members of the council, thank you so much for allowing us to come here and share with you some of the economic development that Outer Banks Sporting Events has had on our local community during 2012. We thank you so much for your support over the years. You guys have been very supportive since 2006, the very first marathon. And since then, we have grown into an organization that now stands on its own. Outer Banks Sporting Events became a nonprofit organization in 2010 because of the success of the marathon. And it is truly because of our community's support and your support that we've been able to do that over the years. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to present to you an official Outer Banks Marathon poster, which is in that bag over there. Jim, if you don't mind getting that for us, please. This poster is signed by the artist, Catalina Cato, and the title of this poster is A Joyful Run, and truly it has been a joyful run. Kitty Hawk has been so supportive from the very first. I remember when you guys painted the right flyer on the streets in Kitty Hawk in green. That was fabulous. No, it wasn't green, was it? Was it green? Green, okay. Yeah. In green. It was fabulous.
That means go.
That's right. That's right. So thank you so much. Please hang this art with pride in your offices. And we truly appreciate your support. It's critical to what we do and helping us improve the quality of life for our citizens here on the Outer Banks. Not only does Outer Banks Sporting Events organize and promote large sporting events here on the Outer Banks, but we also encourage healthy living lifestyle choices for adults and our youth. We help support public education through the Dare Education Foundation and help those of our local citizens suffering from debilitating diseases and disaster through the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. All of our events are purposefully scheduled during the shoulder season so that we can have the greatest impact on our economic development and our local economy. Last year, we had over 10,600 participants register for our events. So we are bringing large numbers of people here. We had 48 states represented and over 10 countries represented during our events. So we do think that we are making a difference in job creation and spending here in our community. Our 4 major events for 2013 are the Flying Pirate, which is just less than 2 weeks away. And so we're really busy getting ready for that, and you guys have heard from us about some of the plans that we have here in Kitty Hawk. New this year on its own weekend is Storm the Beach, and that'll be in June. The Outer Banks Triathlon in September, and then the Gateway Bank Outer Banks Marathon, Half Marathon, 8K, 5K Fun Run in November during Veterans Day weekend. And we would like to show you a short clip of some of the things that have happened during our past events in 2012.
March the spot in 2013. Join Outer Banks Flight Events with 4 great events. The Flying Pirate Half Marathon Reverse Flight 5K, April 13th and 14th. Storm the Beach Adventure Obstacle Course on the Beach, June 16th. Swim, bike, and run in the Outer Banks Triathlon, September 24th to 22nd. The Gateway Bank Outer Banks Marathon and Half Marathon weekend takes place November 8th through the 10th. OPXSC.org. March the spot for healthy active lifestyles in 2013. Visit OPXSC.org. Register now and save.
Now, the new event, Storm the Beach, is an obstacle course adventure race on the beach. We piloted it last year during the Storm the Beach weekend. We had 325 registrants, over 71 teams to register for this event, and it was such a success. Everybody had a fabulous time that we decided to expand it and put it on its own weekend. It is scheduled to start and finish in Kill Devil Hills at the Life Saving Station there. It's very team-friendly, team and family-oriented, and it also meets the market demand, which is people getting together, doing things together, having fun, and we have a unique situation where we have a beach, and a lot of these other places don't have a beach to have an adventure race. So we hope it'll be a huge success this year like it was last year, and we look forward to having Kitty Hawk put together a team and challenge all the other towns. A team can be as few as 2, as many as 10, so come on. You can help each other. So if Irvin can't get over that wall, it's okay for you, Gary, to help him, get him over the wall. So we all want to come out and have some fun and try that new adventure race this year. And here's a clip of some of the things that the participants did last year doing the Storm the Beach pilot. So get on your running shoes, it's time to go. Okay, now Jim's going to share with you some of the statistics from the economic impact and how it's impacted not only Dare County, but the town of Kitty Hawk.
Okay.
I might be able to climb through that too, but I ain't going over that wall.
You had to go over the wall.
Those days are over, but I can get through that too.
You had to go over the wall back when.
Yeah, back when was a long time ago, that's right.
I'm sure Irvin will work on your entries in building the team, right?
We'll do it, yeah. That was 12 foot, right?
You know, it's when we come up and we thank you guys and thank your support and whatnot and your involvement, it does mean a lot. I'll get into the economic development information in a second, but I mean, when you have Irvin, you're signing up for the 5K and the half?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just checking. I mean, that's serious involvement. So he's going to do the 5K on April 13th and then the half the next day. I think that's really good. All right, back to the series. Our total estimated economic impact from last year is just about $6.3 million. That's based off of 9,122 people answering the question that where they're staying and how long they're staying for, and how many people they're bringing with them. The total is just about 32,000 visitors for the entire year for last year. That's a lot of people, and we do ask them where they're going to stay, and the next slide here is the information that we got from them. So the total 2012 estimated economic impact for Kitty Hawk is $1.6 million. That was 1,800 participants, and they brought 3.26 people with them, so about 5,900 people. or I'm sorry, 5,900 guests with each, totaling 7,700 visitors. We take the $75, it's estimated from the Visitors Bureau how much they spend per day. They're staying an average of 2.2 days. And when we add everything together, the per diem and the money that they spend, plus the accommodations, that's how we come up with the $1.6 million estimated impact. And just to, if you ever need any more details about rooms and how many houses and whatnot that they stay in, please let us know. We've got a lot of really neat data if you're into that type of thing, such as this. For the total year, we had 2,477 room nights booked just in Kitty Hawk for the various events. So that's quite a bit. Our total right now is we're just under $32 million in local economic impact generated over the past 7 years. And that was all started with the Gateway Bank Outer Banks Marathon, and then which has evolved into all the OBSC events. And more local economic impact, as most of you know, 100% of our net proceeds is split 50-50 between the Dare Education Foundation and the Outer Banks Relief Foundation. Without those two organizations couldn't do what they do. And again, we do all of this to help individuals in Dare County. So it's a really good thing that money stays here. We've also gotten involved with various youth organizations that come out and help volunteer at our events, because without our volunteers, we can't do this. And we contribute to what their calls may be, whether it's the cheerleaders, wrestling, swim team. They come out, they earn a little bit of money, and then they also use it as a team building experience. It's becoming very successful, and we're very proud to see our youth out on the course. Does anybody have any questions? No?
No, just thank you for the hard work you're doing and the income you're bringing to the Outer Banks.
Well, it's every year it's more and more challenging. There's a lot of competition out there, wanting people to go to Raleigh and Virginia and whatnot. We try to step our events up. We got to be cost competitive with everybody. And to be honest with you, without your support and the type of support that you give us, we really couldn't do it. So it means a lot, and it's the backbone of what we're trying to achieve, and that is, helping our fellow Dare County people out. So thank you. If you have any questions, just get hold of us later.
Okay, next we've got students from the First Flight High School Civic class. And I don't know who's first, but you just take turns coming up. We'll try not to bite you, and we'll just listen to what you're saying, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. Hello, my name is Andrew Odell. These are my partners, Aaron Reif and Arthur Grauer. And we would like to thank you all for letting us come and being able to speak. We would like to try to propose for making a positive influence in our community to put street lights up at the crosswalks on the Beach Road, Route 12. We want to do this to try to increase safety along the Beach Road, because during the summer you will have tourists who will go to the beach at really any time of the day. They may go to just for the whole day, or you may have the several who go to see the sunset or decide to go out at night to try to go crabbing. Well, not a lot of them seem to really like wearing lighter clothes. Sometimes they'll be wearing darker colors, and so that can make them a little more that could make them a little less visible to drivers who are driving down the beach road. And so what we had the idea of was take street lights and put them at the crosswalks in Kitty Hawk, and so that way they'd be a little bit more visible and so that, if anything, fewer accidents could occur. We feel as if it could reduce the number of accidents and hopefully over the long term be cost effective, in a sense. We have located about 12 streets that would need lights put over the crosswalks, and that was all throughout Kitty Hawk. There were several other roads, but they didn't have crosswalks. Bird Street does have a street light for it. The problem is it's facing more towards the beach and not towards the road, which it could help, but if anything, you'd want to see it a little bit more visible for the road so that you could see if anyone is crossing.
Why we should put streetlights at intersections? On a survey out of 1,964 people, 205 or 10.4% of people are more concerned about Route 12 than other roads such as 158 and safety. There are some suggested streetlights, and they are the F2960 Tri F06 Astor Medium Tri Light Post Lantern. It is a total of $362.50. It also looks elegant, but it will also allow light to be put on the road to brighten up crosswalks. And the other one is the Livix Lighting 2140-16. Right now it is on sale for $335.92, but the original price was $399.90. The Iron Ridge UNISA/26 side of the poles solar panel mount, it would be the mount that we would want to use to make them more cost effective, so it is $63 even.
The original plan was to just have street lights on the roads, but then we figured if it was possible, we could try to see if we could make them a little more cost effective and try to see if we could attach solar panels onto the sides of them so that they would, once they get set up, power themselves and greatly, if not all, reduce the cost of how much the pole takes in electricity. And we found this version, which per watt is about $500 total. The total cost, one street would cost roughly around $926, rounding up to the dollar. The prices for the light bulbs we found will vary from either $20 to $100. 12 streets, all of them total, for just those, would cost about just over $11,000. The installation cost for each streetlight we found statistically was averaged around $4,000. To cement the streetlights down into the roads, just in case, we found that you could get bags of 75-pound cement for $10 at just Home Depot. And the total cost for the project would be just over $59,000, again rounding up to the dollar. We figured the way to pay for this would be to try to apply for a grant from the OBX Tourism Bureau. Does anybody have any questions for the? And perks would be hopefully added safety to both drivers and the pedestrians. We hope it would be, most likely it would be cost effective in the long run, and it would be eco-friendly because you are getting solar power from it. Does anybody have any questions?
It looks like you've done your homework and you got some good information, and I surely thank you for thinking about it and coming forward with it and giving us the information.
All right, thank you for listening.
Could, have you have already emailed your presentation to the town for tonight's meeting?
No, I have not.
Or,
I mean-
I guess the question is, do we have a copy of this?
I have shared it, but I'm not sure if it may have taken. I will try to email the presentation.
Yeah, I think it would be useful for us to have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
Grant,
Are you next, Joe?
no, it's Grant, Daniel, and
Hello. Thank you for having us. Our proposal is to have the expansion of the parking lot on Lillian Street. So basically, we've recognized that the town needs more parking space because we're obviously a big tourist town. So in the summer, there's not a lot of a great amount of parking space in the summer for people because we're an extensive fishing town and surfing, so we could definitely use some more parking space.
We know the problem is the Outer Banks is a large industry in fishing and water sports. So there are only 4 parking lots in Kitty Hawk. There's from Bird Street, Eckner, Lily, and the Kitty Hawk Bathhouse. And not many of them are very big, so these, and necessary to increase the parking to the tourists, we would need to add more parking spaces so we can have more tourists at a certain beach access, so they can have do their sports and hobbies on the beach. And
This is just a plan we drew up. It recommends increasing it by 14 parking spaces, and it actually doesn't touch the highway. There were a few earlier suggested problems with it touching the highway about safety issues or something, but there's like a 50-foot gap of sand between the end of it and the highway, and it'd be right by Mattress Smart and Lindbergh. And if it can't be expanded 14, we'd like to have it as close to that as possible. That'd be great.
Okay, so basically the expected cost for all this would be around $29,000. The cost would include removing the curbs, grading, the 6-inch stone base, 2-inch asphalt, stripping, wheel stops, and mobilization. So all those would add up to about $29,000 if we got 14 parking spaces. So the timeline would just include the project plan submitted for new budget proposal, plan approved, assuming that it's approved, and action taken within 6 months, and then the construction would begin when it's warm enough, so around this time in March, around March 2014, assuming that we could get some grants this coming October.
Hopefully this would increase the satisfaction of tourists and locals and help to boost our economy since it thrives on tourism and fishing industries.
This just goes over some of the earlier propositions. Basically, we just rounded them off, so we cut off the sharp corners that would say, like, with safety concerns and whatnot.
This was proposed about 3 years ago, but action was never taken on it because there were potential traffic flow problems. I think that was mostly due because it was supposed to touch the highway, but we've revised it and made it so it's still a great expansion, but not supposed to touch the highway. So that should allow for less problems and still the same benefits. So hopefully, it also would help because Lillian is one of the longest and widest beaches in Kitty Hawk, and that's a very, very visited local beach by tourists and surfers and locals. Is that any questions?
Emily, you got?
I have a couple of comments. First of all, this project actually is in the Recreation Master Plan, so, and you're right that it was looked at previously. And there were some problems with the traffic flow, but subsequently, I know the Public Works Director and the Police Department did look at a revision to that, to the plan. So I think you've picked a good project, and, you know, good luck moving ahead with it.
Thank you.
The other problem that I think was considered is from Hurricane Irene, there was a large amount of sand that was disposed in between William Street and the Mattress Mart, or the next store. I've been told that DOT is supposed to move that back to the beach, so they would take care of that sand, and that would be kind of eliminated, and then that could be graded for the parking lot and everything. So that estimate we did is not including DOT moving that sand, because it wouldn't really affect this project.
Any more comments? All right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Lynn, we have another group.
Yes. Colin, Tyler. and then- Is there another group here?
I would think that
Okay.
Then we're gonna come talk about bike racks.
I'm guessing they didn't.
They didn't show up?
I guess not.
Well, I want to thank you, all you young people for taking part in progress and looking for things that can be helped in the community. And I appreciate your hard work, and thank you for that.
And I'll add, I'm impressed by the depth of research. I'm kind of a nut on that, and I am impressed that you went into depth and put some really good facts out there. Thank you for that.
And you're going to get a copy of that information?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please email it to me.
And I will say that the first time that I was probably 20-some, almost 30 years old when I got up in front, a group of people and a town councilman spoke. I was as nervous as you can possibly ever believe. And you guys were just cool, calm, and collected, so I was impressed. Good job, Say.
Okay, Lynn, move on to public comment.
Yes, sir. I don't have anyone signed up.
Anyone wish to speak at public comment? Nobody? Okay. Move on to, you want to speak? Yeah. Come on. You almost missed it. You had to wait till the end.
Your name, please?
Mick Stanisic, M-I-C-K, S-T-A-N-O-V-S-E-K.
Maybe you could email that to me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'd just like to say thank you again for all your guys' hard work.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. Have any changes or motion for consent agenda?
Motion to approve as promulgated.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Items removed from consent agenda, we don't have any of them. Next is planning. We got 2 public hearings to be set for next meeting. We need a motion to set those public hearings.
I make a motion to call a public hearing for text amendment proposal to amend subsection 42-577, Table 4 and Table 5 of the Kitty Hawk Town Code to increase the allowable number and size of neon open-close signs. Public hearing is requested to be scheduled for May 6, 2013, Town Council meeting. You want both of them?
We can, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
I also move to call a public hearing for conditional use permit, application for a conditional use permit to establish 4 wind turbines as part of an electric public utility research project on the Dominion, North Carolina Power Company property at 5300 The Woods Road. Public hearing is requested to be scheduled for May 6, 2013, Town Council meeting.
Second?
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is new business. Amendment to the Town Code, Chapter 18, Section 1819, prohibiting of use of sky lanterns. I had to ask the question the other day what the sky lantern was,
Myself.
but I found out, so. Okay, John, this
Mr.
must be
Mayor,
yours.
yeah, the fire chief had asked me to place this on the agenda, proposing to adopt an ordinance that prohibits the sky lanterns in Kitty Hawk. Use of the sky lantern does pose a possible fire hazard for properties and buildings. And the passing of the ordinance prohibiting use of sky lanterns is allowed under North Carolina General Statute 168-174 and NC General Statute 168-183. And so we are asking that the council do approve that. I believe there was one change or recommended change under definitions, definitions, where it says sky lantern miniature, to strike the word miniature so that it's all inclusive. They may have larger sky lanterns than a miniature, so requesting that that be stricken from the verbiage of the ordinance. Any questions on that?
Anybody have any questions?
I have two. First comment, at the last Tourist Bureau meeting, I asked if this would have any impact basically on wedding industry, those sort of occasions, which is where this apparently shows up most often. And the general consensus of rental agents and those kinds of folks was that no, the safety hazard outweighed any impact, and they didn't foresee it as an impact. So I thought I'd pass that along to us. And then my second question is, there is a section here under C that says the provisions of this section shall not be applicable to town-sponsored events. Why are we exempting ourselves from a hazardous activity? I don't,
I don't either. No,
that shouldn't be there.
not for this.
So, I mean, a fire is a fire is a
Yeah.
fire.
Well, I had the same question when I read it, and then what occurred to me is that, for instance, fireworks displays, there are ordinances against people shooting off fireworks, but I guess the assumption here is that if the town is doing something,
town's
they're
doing
gonna
it.
do it with the safety precautions or whatever. So that was the only reason that I could think of to exempt us. If that's not the reason, then I'm with you.
Well, and
We should be,
we should be the same as anyone else.
Same as
But
anybody else.
in this particular case, you light something under a rice balloon, it goes up, you can't control that. It's gone. Fireworks, you can clean up. This you cannot. So I'll make a motion to approve this with two amendments. One, to remove the word miniature from the definition of sky lantern, and the other is to remove item C, the provisions of this section shall not be applicable to town-sponsored events. It should be, in my mind.
I agree.
That's the way I'm
I
making the
agree.
motion.
I'll second that.
Yeah. I just asked John, do you have a comment on why that was in there?
I believe we just use this as a model from what the other towns have adopted. So
Then
there's no problem
Yeah.
excluding that.
I agree then.
All right.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next. Approval of contracts, East Kitty Hawk Road and Lillian Street walkovers.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, We had solicited bids for the crossovers at East Kitty Hawk Road and one at Lillian Street. It was done on Monday, the 25th of March, and we had a bid opening this morning at 10 a.m. here at Town Hall. As a result of the bid opening, the lowest and best bid is recommended to be awarded to Lynn Small Incorporated for the East Kitty Hawk Road Beach Crossover Project, and with a low bid price of $11,200, and to Lynn Small Incorporated for the Lillian Street Beach Crossover Project with a low bid price of $41,500. We did receive a grant, as you know, from CAMA in the amount of $43,548 to pay for 75% of the estimated cost of engineering and construction, and $57,866 was budgeted for the two projects. The amount budgeted for engineering was $11,275, which left $46,591 for construction. That's the total amount. The total of the two lowest bids was $52,700, which creates a shortfall of $6,109. And speaking with our consultant, Albemarle Associates, they are working with the contractor to try to adjust the design, and he feels like we could probably save about another $3,000 off of that shortfall. So we're looking at probably a realistic shortfall maybe of about $3,100. So if that's okay with council, I would recommend we proceed with the two approval of the two bids.
The matching grant on our part, we were going to try to get from the county nourishment fund, is that correct?
We can, yeah, I understand that money, I guess, is available for that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so the additional amount that we're looking at would be a part of that request?
It could
for the
be,
matching
yes, sir,
grant.
it could be that, yes, sir.
So hopefully it won't come out of the town's budget at this point if we
Right.
do everything right.
Right, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I move that the town manager be authorized to award a contract to Lynn Small Inc. for the purpose of constructing a beach crossover at East Kitty Hawk Road and NC 12 for the low bid price of $11,200, and a beach crossover at Lillian Street and NC 12 with a low bid price of $41,500. Said funding to come from account 5580, Building and Structures. And just for everybody's information, the Lillian Street is more because it's ADA access.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, sir, that's correct.
So it costs more. And we can probably get some money saved because the dune's not as wide as it was.
That may be the case. They said they, would be able to lower the decking, I believe,
Right,
for that.
all right.
Okay, so any questions?
Did we get a second?
Second? Anybody second that?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay. Reports and general comments from the town manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to kind of give council status on the complaint concerning the Winks. It has been filed, but I understand it has not been served by the sheriff's office. And when it is served, I believe they have 30 days to answer the complaint, and then an additional 30 days can be granted by the clerk of the court. So, but that is in the process.
Let's have that again.
The complaint has been filed, okay, but it has not been served by the sheriff's office. And they expect that shortly, probably, but within a week, Steve, you say?
It should be served
Served
this week.
this week, okay. And then after they serve it, then they understand they have 30 days to answer the complaint, and then an additional 30 days, I guess, is allowed from the clerk of the court. So you're probably looking at about 60 days once it's actually served. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to ask the council if we can grant a half-day off for employees who participate in the upcoming Cupcake 5K this year. It's like, it was like the 5K we had last year. That's the race that's sponsored by the OBX Hospital, and we have the competition between all the towns on the Outer Banks. The race this year is also a benefit for the Relay for Life, so it's a good benefit thing to do, and we're encouraging everybody to participate. We have thus far about 48% of our employees will be participating in that event this year. So I wanted to see if council has any problems with us doing that again this year.
I don't have any.
Okay.
Not me.
Do employees that don't participate get off too?
No, sir.
No, just-
No, only if you participate. That's a condition.
That's an encouragement.
Oh, yes. It's a good incentive. It's a very good.
I don't have any objection.
Good incentive. No. Okay. Also, I wanted to recognize two of our employees who work at our recycling center. We recently received a letter from Hugo Lee. He wanted to congratulate Joe Carnetti and Jason Coletti for their outstanding performance in dealing with all the folks who visit the recycling center. Mr. Lee lives near the recycling center, and he uses it quite often. And he said that Mr. Carnetti and Mr. Coletti always assist him in offloading his recyclables and are very courteous. So just wanted to pass that on. Also, next item, I wanted to remind council about the upcoming presentation we have by NCDOT to be held here at the Town Hall on April 12th at 10:30 a.m. NCDOT will be giving a presentation on the possible use of medians on US 158 as a part of the proposed comprehensive transportation plan. So, and they're in the process of inviting boards and staff members from all the other localities to attend that presentation. The last item I have is we had scheduled a workshop for April the 23rd, and I wanted to see if a council, how they feel about that date. The reason being is because our preliminary figures of the assessments that have been done, property assessments, we haven't received the final figures yet from the county, and we want to make sure that we have that information available before we get into some further discussion with council. We might want to, we did have a meeting, I think, set for May, I think it was May 21st, if I'm not mistaken, to have a possible workshop. And I wanted to see if that date was amenable to council to try to go ahead. We should have some figures, good figures at that time, have some figures at that time where we can discuss it in more detail as far as our budget's concerned and how it affects our budget and the neutral tax rate. Oh, it is.
What day was that again?
We had originally set a time for Tuesday, May 21st. I don't know how that works with members of council.
Well, it's open, it's late. but it's
If you want to have it earlier, I mean, we could,
When is the information going to be available? Do we have a feel for
we
that?
we should have the information probably the second week of May. I think we should have the information available.
If you want to, you could at our next meeting, our May meeting, make a decision.
At that time?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we could just recess for that meeting,
Okay, all right,
if that's all right with everybody.
okay, we'll do
You
that.
know, just pick a day that everybody's available.
Yeah, yeah,
And you'll know more by the 1st of May,
we should know more,
you know,
yes,
where you stand.
where we stand, yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
If that's
I-
okay.
Yeah, I, for one, if the information is available a little earlier, would like to see
Yeah,
it
it would
a
be
little
better.
earlier.
We
Okay.
may have to have more than one if, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor, this evening.
Town attorney.
Don's covered everything I needed to say.
You already done it all? Okay, town council. Irvin,
I'm fine.
Emily? I know Gary's got some, so we'll go with that.
All right, I'm gonna stir the pot. It's time, folks. Yes, we can pass those down. If anybody wants them, I have comments up here. All right, questions have come up concerning whether the town is doing anything in reference to storm damage reduction in the area of our beaches and between the highways. Town staff recently published information related to that subject. Let's explore the subject further tonight. Town involvement in the Shoreline Management Commission was instrumental in a beach nourishment occupancy tax policy that allows more than the single purpose of pumping sand and more fairly makes available the money for all towns as well as the county. Thus, town involvement in storm damage reduction of our beaches has been ongoing for years. At this point in time, town staff, at direction from council, has explored all known options for the processes to rebuild beaches and/or removal of floodwater after a storm. Specifically, I refer to beach nourishment, pumping floodwater, or outfall installation. We are now at a point where to do any options, including the study necessary to know if an option is feasible, funding must be accrued. It is therefore time to determine if property owners in Kitty Hawk are ready to pony up the funding mechanism required to start the research needed to determine the long and short-term solutions for our issues. In case you think the current ad valorem tax rate you pay is sufficient to pay for a study, permitting, or installation of any of the known options, let me give you the stark truth. What you currently pay is barely sufficient to meet the governmental services provided by the town. Further, the oceanside property values are insufficient to pay for the most expensive options you might prefer. For example, before the most recent reevaluation, the total assessed value of oceanfront property was estimated at $65 million. Raising the tax 1 penny only raises $7,000. Value of property between the highways was estimated at $459 million. Raising the tax 1 penny in that section raises only $46,000. I have not gone into all the variables possible, but suffice it to say, outside sources of funding are required to fund any major effort at storm damage reduction in Kitty Hawk. Now it's time to discuss special taxes within special tax districts dedicated to the problem at hand. It is time for council to publicly discuss the two methods permitted by North Carolina statute. Let me start with a brief discussion of each. The town attorney has been previously provided a list of questions on the subject so he can correct any misunderstandings I may have in my reading of the law. First, a municipal service district. A special tax district set in motion by public hearing that involves mass mailing to all property owners in the proposed district and describes the purpose, tax rate, and legal information as required by North Carolina statute. The other, a special tax via voter referendum. Essentially for the same purpose, a service district, but in a form similar to this. Shall the town of Kitty Hawk be authorized to levy annually a property tax at a rate not in excess of blank cents on the $100 value of property subject to taxation for the purpose of blank, in this case, storm damage reduction? Please note, this is important, please note that the hearing on a municipal service district allows all affected property owners to have input, whereas the voter referendum effectively puts the question and answer to resident voters. Now, before I turn this to council discussion, there are some questions the attorney needs to answer, and I'm going to read these from my email. Steve, question number 1. A special service district involves all property owners in the district via mass mailing and public hearing. Was I correct?
That's correct, and what has to come is a map that shows what the district is. And at least 4 weeks before any public hearing is conducted, there has to be a mailing to all of the registered property owners on the tax rolls, advising them of what's coming down the pipe. You have to send it to them, every one of them.
Okay. Question number 2. A voter referendum involves only resident voters and involves the whole town being taxed at the desired rate, but for a dedicated specific purpose. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is one way to do it.
But it involves the whole town.
It would involve the whole town if you were voting to impose a tax rate on the whole town.
All right. In order to break the town up into smaller districts, you almost have to go to the hearing side. Is that correct?
That's right. If you're gonna set up a special district and you want to have a tax that applies only in that special district, then yeah, you've got to create that district.
Okay.
The town could have a referendum to vote and tax everybody in town to do the storm bond.
Steve, when Nags Head did it, didn't they have a referendum that
They
involved
did.
both the special district and but
Well-
residents only?
That's right. They went ahead and set up the special district in like 2007. But then they tried to get the people in that special district to petition to impose a special levy. And I think you had to have 2/3 of the residents and 2/3 of the assessed property value. They didn't get that number. So then they went the referendum route, and that didn't work. So then they went and they've done the special tax district. And they issued some general obligation bonds as well.
So they did the special tax district on the ocean area, and they did that through the letter writing?
That's
And-
my
and-
understanding.
and then
That's
the
how they
public
did
hearing.
that. That's correct.
So they in effect set up for the beach people what you're describing here as a municipal.
They actually have two
Municipal
districts,
service
and I think
district.
they're treated the same, at least my understanding.
So municipal service district is different from a special tax district.
Well, they're one and the same thing.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
They're synonymous.
So it's just terminology.
That's correct.
Because I got a question. So if you set this up, can you do a graduated district, which you would have on the ocean front, that you would have one percentage and then backward?
You would have to create separate districts to treat them differently.
So in order to do that, you still have to do the letter writing and the public hearing thing instead of referendum.
Right.
Referendum would cover everybody the same.
Yeah, and you also, if your combined tax rate, your ad valorem rate for your general revenues for the town that you already collect, and then you're going to impose a special tax in these service districts, they cannot exceed $1.50 per hundred combined.
Right.
If you're gonna go past $1.50 combined, you have to have a referendum to get that approved.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you
So
there.
you've got a big number here to work with, $1.50 per hundred.
Oh, I know,
It's a pretty
that's,
big number, but that's statutory unless the voters approve going to a higher number.
right.
All right.
But if you did a special tax district by writing everybody and you did it between the highway or from 158, and then if you wanted to add on a extra tax for the rest of the town at some point, say you added a couple extra cents in your normal thing and used it for that, you wouldn't have to do anything different.
No, you can do that.
See, that would eliminate having to do this, I think that's what
Well-
Nags Head did.
For the special district, you have to do the mass mailing and the public
Yeah.
hearing. For the general town obligations, you can raise the tax rate and use those revenues, and it's, that's one of the purposes that the town has the ability to just raise general revenues to do as well.
And the other question that I have is that if you set up this special tax district and it is for the purpose of flood damage prevention, that money cannot be used or transferred to the general fund
Or
for
anything else.
anything else.
That's correct.
So that the people who would be affected by it can feel confident that this is what it's for, and you're getting taxed extra for it because it applies to you, and nobody's gonna get to tinkering with it.
Well, that's what the statute says.
Okay.
What the money's for.
Not in those words, though, right?
But now, what you just said about raising ad valorem to also put into it doesn't designate that to that
No,
dedicated
no,
purpose
you would
she's
be-
worried about.
you would
You
be
might do
raising-
it on your own doing, but
And
a
use-
fellow
use-
council can do
right.
whatever they want. with
That's
it.
right. That would be something different.
Right.
Right, so it's
That
so
would
that
be
it-
just a tax raise,
You're
whatever.
just raising ad valorem
ad
tax rate.
valorem tax, and you dedicate some of it to it when you put it
But
in your-
even if
in
you,
your
set-
budget.
even if you did that and set aside, like these accounts that we do for the IT and for all
Fire
of those things, we could change those anytime
We
we
could change,
want
it.
to.
we could change that.
But when
This
you do a
couldn't.
special tax
No.
district, you can't,
That would be just like the,
like the counties.
the road tax we
yeah.
get. And that, you know, it's set
Yeah.
aside for
Oh.
that period.
And just like I say, when you set up the special tax district, you can change what you tax people at every year. You can skip years. You don't have to tax every year. So you have flexibility, but those funds that you collect are dedicated. And I know in the statute provides that once you start taxing people, you have to start letting contracts to use that money within a year. The levying of the tax is the triggering event for that one-year requirement to start to work on the project.
Yeah, but you know, if you taxed and used it for engineering, and then you had to wait for wouldn't have to necessarily tax the next year for construction until you found out
That's
about
correct.
construction.
You could say no taxes this year in the
Right.
district, although I suspect
But-
you're
but if
gonna
you've
need
got
to
the
start putting money
district-
in the bank.
You've almost got to get a district set up in order to get started.
That's correct. And setting up the district, you get to say when the district is actually created. If you wanted to set one up in 2015, you could do that.
Or you wouldn't have to tax it until you decided it was time to tax it.
That's correct.
But you'd have the district, so you have the ability to do it.
And that way, everybody knows that when it's time to be taxed, I'm in that district or I'm not in that district.
Because, you know, we've been at this thing since '93, I know, and I don't know when before, and thought we had some of the problems fixed, but we're going to be able to do something, and then legislature or just cut us, you know, environmental problem, just cut it away from us.
And the only other thing I would add is when you decide to tax, it has to start with the fiscal year.
Correct.
You can't tax for part of the fiscal year.
You can hold a hearing anytime. Now, if you do a referendum, then there are specific times when you have to do that. They can't interfere with some other things, but
Can I ask one more question
Go
about
ahead.
this? Depending on what you're doing, a single tax district, like for instance, between 158 and NC 12, might not make sense for some flood damage prevention efforts as opposed to others. For instance, if you're doing an ocean outfall, and that certainly is a big player between the highways.
Right.
If you're doing, and I know I can't use the term, beach nourishment.
Oh,
but
yeah, you can.
Yeah,
It's
you
just-
can. You
it's
just
all-
nobody
it's
wants you
all
to.
lumped under the
Yeah.
same thing.
But if you're doing that, there's a little bit more of a positive impact
For
on the
everybody.
oceanfront properties and some of the properties on the west side, and for the whole district, in terms of, if it works, there won't be as much flooding or maybe even the need for an outfall. But do you have to, ahead of time, figure out district within district, or is that something that you should do when you come up with what projects you're going to try to deal with?
There's a certain amount of base planning that has to go on before you do any of this. And, you know, you need to have some idea of what goals you want to accomplish. You need to have some idea about the cost and how long it's gonna take to do the project that you want to do. And then you've got to identify the area that's gonna benefit from it and what's gonna be included in that special service district or tax district. So there's lots that goes into it, and then you send out the mass mailing to the identified folks who are gonna be in there, and you may get people at a public hearing that say, no, we shouldn't be in here for this reason, or there may be people who say, well, we should be in it. Not many of them will volunteer, probably. But, and your plan can change at that point in time. You know, it allows for the flexibility to do that. But once you have set that district, you know, that's pretty much it. You can change it in the future if you need to, but you have to go through the same
whole
process
process.
again.
But can you tax portions of it that would only, in other words, if you put an outfall in, I think what she's getting to, and it only affected half of the district?
Everybody in the district
Would have
has
to
to be taxed the
Equal,
same,
okay. That's,
just like you do for property taxes generally
Okay.
in the town.
okay.
So Nags Head had gradations from the ocean front, and then I think 3 maybe it was, I'm
Yeah.
not sure, for their project.
I'm not sure exact, I know
Yeah,
they
I
had
know
at
they
least
had-
2 special tax districts.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how they set theirs up.
Mhm.
But within a district, everybody has to be taxed the same.
So before we actually go to a public hearing for something like this, that we really need to do some homework to figure out just how many
Well, you have
districts
to have a
or
map
what.
to start.
Yes,
So you have to decide, council would have to decide what the district would encompass, a map, and then all the property owners would have to be involved. But a district involves out-of-town people, whereas a referendum does not. And that's the big difference to my mind. All right, I'm going to move on to question 3, which kind of fits in with what you were mulling over, and that is, whichever method chosen, the town could properly, legally declare the use to be for storm damage reduction, so the monies could be used for the variety of ways currently under consideration. Ergo, outfall or pumping station or beach nourishment and so on and so forth. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, and if you look at the statute, there's several things that you can do, a whole number of things, but beach erosion control and flood and hurricane protection works and drainage projects. So all of those parts that you described fall in under that umbrella. That was 2 categories, but you can combine them into one district and do those projects.
Any way to get rid of the water or to keep it from coming in?
That's right. Because you've got
That's
the
the-
storm damage prevention, and then you've got the drainage. How do we get rid of it?
That's the goal in the whole thing, is keep it out or try to get rid of it as soon as possible. You know, it's confusing trying to go back and do this all over again, but that's where we are. A lot of information that people don't know that's been done, you know, as the Corps of Engineers, information has gone out that we didn't qualify for most of our town for beach nourishment at the time. They didn't qualify us. And so that federally cuts us out of the system, although I do think that the system that we asked them to go back into study before the federal government said they weren't going to do any beach nourishment, I think would have qualified us for beach nourishment all the way down through Kitty Hawk, because they didn't take in consideration the price of the road, replacement of the road fully, and they didn't take into consideration the houses on the west side without access if the road was gone. So there was a lot of things that should have been done that wasn't done, that the Corps of Engineers was gonna do and didn't do because legislature said we're not doing any new projects. And there's a lot of information that's gone through. There is hope that I think we can do some of the things that we couldn't do now. I think, if things eased up to a point, we possibly can get some things accomplished. We've had a lot of storms in the last few years that has brought water in. And what we're talking about doing all of these things, when I looked at what happened at New Jersey, New York, I was thinking, we can do all of this stuff, but if we ever get the storm that never has come here, that went there, the way it went there, none of it won't make any difference because it'll do away with all of it. You got that to think about too. And then you've got the Soundside flooding, which came 2 years ago, that history never has told us it's been that bad before. Anybody I ever knew, that had never been that high before. So how do you solve all the problems? We do need to, in my opinion, we do need to work on the beachfront and try to stop what we're having to deal with on routine basis, northeasters and those type things. So that's my statement.
Are you ready for me now?
Ready for you? I don't know what you want to do.
Well, if most of what we've discussed here tonight is correct, we need to do something. And it seems to me that council should at least start the general rough research of exploring outfall potentials, using the existing data that we have from the flooding study that was done, because that gives us topography and those sort of things. So that's one thing we can do. We already have the study for the pumping of the floodwaters and Rabbit Hollow and those sort of things. We need to take it one step further on deciding, and you need to step away from this council meeting, but the next one, we need to start thinking about, are we going to set up a district? Will that be done? Because we can't even start beginning to look at beach nourishment. I mean, an outfall costs you roughly $1 million. Pumping's costing nearly that much as often as it is, and it takes a long time, and it causes more toxins than we want to put out there. Beach nourishment, you're looking at $20+ million, and you have to at least study it first. Kitty Hawk, and I've reported this before, is split in two places. We have, south of Historic Street, some easements that have been granted for beach nourishment. We have nothing north of that. So you got to go through all of that drill. You're talking money you got to have just to start the process. We don't have it. Our current ad valorem will not support it, and we need to start making decisions on that. I don't see this council probably, well, we can't. We don't have enough time to even set up a district now and do it properly without rushing. We could do it, but I don't see that happening before a fiscal year. And you can't start the process of collecting for it even if you do the hearing, assuming everybody wants it.
Well, that's a big
that sort of
assumption.
thing.
That's a big assumption.
It is.
I live on the beach,
I know.
and I'm here to tell you that a lot of people don't want any of this done. I mean, everything that we hear in emails and the other comments that we get are people that are in favor of it. And I'd say a lot has changed, and Gary made this point since Nags Head did their project. There's been, over the years, I've heard so many people just think that beach nourishment would not work. And I know Kitty Hawk has some differences in terms of the bottom and all of the other things that go into making for a successful project. But going ahead with this public hearing, I think, is going to be something that we need to do just to hear from all of these property owners, because my feeling is that with all of the problems they've had recently, they're going to be in favor of setting up the district, and they'll be willing to pay for something that they think would alleviate some of the hardships that have been over there for a lot of these smaller storms.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, you know, but I'm just not sure that that's going to be the outcome. And I really would like to hear
Well-
from everybody.
Here's my thing. If we go ahead, do the map, do the information we need, send them the information, and I guess they can send it back in writing or come to the
Or
public
come to the
hearing.
public hearing.
We're not forcing anything on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving them the opportunities to say yes or no. And whatever that outcome is where we're left. And I don't think, you know, it's not like we're saying you've got to do it or you don't have to do it. This is the information. This is what it's for. And that solves the problem. We either get it or we don't. You know, we had the 1 cent tax for a beach replenishment thing, which failed countywide. There's a 1 cent occupancy tax. It's never been put in place. If we had these two things going, in my estimation, it's the best way to raise the money to do what needs to be done up and down the whole beach. But I can't make it happen.
Yeah, and I just don't know what the outcome
Well,
will
I don't
be.
either, and I don't either, and
I
you-
think it's going to be, yes, we'll pay for this.
But
because-
you're over there, you have more input and knowledge of it than I do.
And I don't know.
I don't see why we could be negative in pursuing it to let the people have a say.
Mm-hmm,
That's my opinion.
yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Well, listen, they gotta have a say. All right, I agree with that. We look back, other night I was asleep and woke up, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. There was some guy talking on the TV. Talking about 1932, 1933. We had major northeasters in 32 and 33. There was hurricanes, one in August and one in September, killed 21 people. One like you're talking about New Jersey, it knocked the tar out of the Outer Banks. And in the conversation this guy was, in his presentation, he was telling how Roosevelt came down, and Roosevelt, the president at the time, it was during the Depression, he sent all these guys down there to build the dune lines, and because the idea was to create some breakwater between the ocean and the dune and the inhabitants. And so they built all the dunes here. There weren't dunes here in before 1933 because it was just flat. Now, I wasn't here, but it was just flat. And there was no dunes. And they built those things, and they built dune on top of dune on top of dune by building these little, like teepees, and putting sticks between them. And the northeast wind would come and blow the sand on there, and they'd build the dunes. Well, he had a great idea to do that. And that's where we have the dune system now. We're going to get another storm, y'all. And my point is, and I know I'm not preaching, y'all, but I'm in the tourist industry. What makes our tax base is the tourist. What puts the hospital down here, Outer Banks Hospital, was the tourist. It wasn't the fact that we were just giving this money. Tourists came down here. They spent money. We built houses. We built our vacation homes. Our police departments. Everything we got is based on tourist industry. They're not going to come down here, I'm telling you. They're not going to come down here when they go out and behind the Black Pelican and they walk over the dune and you go a 10-foot drop down to nothing. Because there's nothing right now. Go but the Black Pelican, walk out there, and as you walk over the dune, it goes down to nothing. And there's water there. There's no beach anymore. It's completely gone. So my thing is, if we don't do something, or at least get it to the people so they can say, yeah, I want it. And I'm talking about all the people, not going to a referendum on a ballot to say, let just the voters vote for it. Because the people who own cottages down here are just as darn important as the people who live in Kitty Hawk Village and my cousins and brothers and stuff. They're all important there.
Well, they'd have to, everybody
I
had to
know,
pay.
but their tax dollars are going to help pay for this thing if we do it. So I say, put it out there, but we got to do something. Right now, we got a whammy. You can't get to, tell what a guy told me. He was in my restaurant, and he was in there, and he said, I'm probably not going to come back here anymore. And I thought he was pissed off at me or got a bad meal or something. And that's the worst thing in the business. You say, what happened? He said, listen, he said, I love you to death. My crab biscuit is the best I ever had, but let me tell you this. I can't get to Ocracoke. I can't get to Hatteras. I can't get to the point on Oregon Inlet to go fishing because I can't drive out there. You have no beach in Kitty Hawk. There's nothing for me here anymore. Y'all, we've taken what people came down here for, we've taken from them while they're gonna come back. So we got to do something, and I'm saying, let it rip. Gary, do what you do best. Emily, get the thing done, let's get it to the people and do something quick.
To give you a little, a little bit more history, 1962, the storm that came then took all the dunes that you're talking about they built and put between the highways. Wasn't any houses over there between the highways.
Right.
Put that sand, all those dunes went between the highways. The state, the federal government then took bulldozers and went from one end of the beach all the way to the Virginia line and built the dunes back again with bulldozers. Okay? That's where these dunes come from.
Yeah.
Before that, water just washed over, back and forth. It was a swamp between where the highways are now.
It is
But-
now, too.
It
Frequently.
is now. It is now.
All right. Can
Okay,
we-
so-
We're preaching to a
We're
choir
preaching,
here,
but-
so I'm gonna make a suggestion so we can get out of here.
Yeah, well,
And
thought
my
we-
suggestion is, think on the special district type thing, and let's start talking about that in a serious fashion next meeting. In the meantime, we have a topography and a storm study that can be useful in at least looking at whether or not an outfall is feasible, how many it would take, those sort of things. And I'd like for us to direct John to start looking at that with our engineer, basically, to find out what's feasible and whether or not that can be done. And the reason that has changed is because there's a change of leadership in the legislature, and we've been told basically that if we submit a rough outline of something that looks like it should work with a valve-type system, that it would only be used during crisis situations, and Myrtle Beach, and apparently New Jersey, I believe you said it was New Jersey, have also done outfalls, but they're running them very long offshore. In other words, they're getting them well away from the beach so that you don't run up against the swimming problems. If you do those things, then it's looked at in a different light than it used to be looked at. It's not shut down out of hand. Takes a lot of engineering, takes some study. We have the background to do a general overview, and that's what I'd like council to direct the manager to do.
And we've got most of what an outfall in one place. I mean, we've already got the drawings and everything done for that, I think.
Well,
I mean, there's some things would have to change, but I mean, the whole concept's there. The whole, and there's some things there's some inlets that needs to go into it that's not in it. But there's some thing, I would think, that staff needs to go ahead and start working on this map and whatever, you know, so we come back next meeting, we have something to look at and send them on to do. If,
can you do that?
we, yeah, we've been working on that. Can I get that out to council, let you look at it, and get your
so the
feedback
next
on
meeting,
that?
so the next meeting, we'll have something to say,
I
this
can
is where we wanna go, and then we can
We can do that.
get the letters and start the ball rolling. Doesn't mean we're gonna tax anybody, means we're giving an opportunity for us to do something if we get an opportunity through the state and all that, we can do something.
I agree.
The district will be there, and then it won't be there if they don't want it, and there's no pressure on anybody.
Good, all right.
Anybody else? We got to have public comment. Yes.
I want to thank you very much for looking into these matters and, proceeding with the process. And, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
What is the current outfall you just mentioned?
If you come up here, there is no current outfall.
Oh, okay, I thought you said there was.
There was one that was engineered by NCDOT. It was two engineered by NCDOT from Nolan Company down to 158 to the beach. But it was killed by legislature after it was approved. I think CAMA had approved it, I believe.
They also had permits, but it was killed.
Anyway, that's the things we've been through. Anybody else?
You know, I want to thank you guys as well for at least looking into it, talking to some other folks in town. It seems as though that, I think that there's been a lot of apathy that we felt that's not been looked at. And I'm sure as you guys look back on it and coming back to it again, it seems redundant. But from Kitty Hawk Pier down to Eckner, you almost have to walk underneath the houses just to get down the beach. And at this point, to me, a lot of the folks that I know that live between the highways, it is crisis. And I feel like 40-mile-an-hour northeaster brings water over the dune now. And I'm getting on the hot phone just simply to call to see if they're just simply going to push beach accesses. So they don't run down the beach accesses enough just to fill up the middle of Lindbergh there. And, you know, for me, every time it happens, it's $30,000. And for some folks, they say, well, that's the price of doing business on the ocean front. And I, for one, built in a hole there at Rundown Cafe there. So, I certainly have empathy for the folks that are back there on the dune line and Seascape and Tamarack for, you know, why would I want to pay a higher tax to see the, you know, the dune line or the beach fortified. But if we just simply can't even walk our dogs on the beach or walk down the beach, it just seems like it's moot. I can't even imagine that if we can't think past the point of mitigating the damage enough to make an outfall or to have a pump station which we can fire off fast enough that it's not sewage-laden water, it just begs at least the attention to study it. And I'm just thrilled to be here and hear y'all talking about it. So thank you, and I plan to come on all the meetings until we have a resolution. I was here at the Hazard Mitigation Committee in 2003 and sat and talked about a lot of different things that we could do to mitigate the damage, whether it be compartmentalizing the beach and groining or the areas there between the highways to have certain areas where we can pump out at certain points. But you can understand where people thinking that they're pumping pure sewage out into the ocean, but where's it going to go anyways? It either sits there and nobody can drive there and it's a big sewage cesspool anyways, or we're pumping fresh salt water right back to the beach. But at any rate, it's begging for something to happen because we're looking at imminent disaster with simply an 80-mile-an-hour storm, which is every other year for us. So, thank you for the attention.
Anybody else?
I just want to say that, you know, I don't have a business on the beach road. I live in Kitty Hawk Village. You know, so just to hear from the other side, I'm still very much in support of doing something to save our beaches. So I don't think it's just the people on the beaches that are concerned. You know, just because I don't live there, I still enjoy it, and I think we need to do something. So I'm also very glad to hear y'all looking at this seriously.
Okay. Anybody else?
I kind of stopped myself earlier because I got nervous, and I didn't know if I was able to ask a question of any of you or of particularly the attorney in relation to the plan that you were just speaking of. Is it possible to ask a question?
You come up here and I'll see if I can understand what you're saying. The attorney probably may not want to answer, but.
Well, we began this conversation talking about taxes and, you know, what's eventually going to be necessary to alleviate or help with these issues. And as you went further and talked about the taxes, you talked about tax districts, and they were particularly geographical and maps. Stakeholders are distributed in a lot of different manners, and I'm wondering if it's possible to set up these special tax districts as in terms of use, whether it be rental properties, commercial properties, or residential.
No.
No, it's simply not possible. Okay, so we'll be working on the maps then. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Did you see that guy on TV? Have y'all seen that guy talking about the storms?
Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times. It's on 19. It's on 19. It's at Education.